I should never have tried to save somebody who did not want to be saved. You think they need your help, but really they don't.
Lahna Turner is a stand-up comedian, a musician, a photojournalist, a filmmaker, and a writer. She started her career as an Associated Press photographer at 19.
There's like other things that happened in my life that I think are painful. And I found that getting over that and getting out in front of people was really important.
She co-directed the featured documentary Come What May about her late husband, the legendary comedian Ralphie May.
There are a lot of damaged people in stand-up. I mean, you hear the stories that come out of that.
I know like 90% of them have gone through some stuff in their lives.
I think that's a sin to have a child needing you and not being there for them. I don't blame people for judging me like, oh, gold digger or whatever. I don't think you have to be like the most broken person in the room to be the funniest one, but definitely gives you a story.
How did you manage your emotions as you were going through all of this?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean,
the more you know, the more the unknown grows. I am Jitesh Vaswani, your host, and together, let's take this journey beyond the known.
Lahna Turner is a stand-up comedian, a musician, a photojournalist, a filmmaker, and a writer. The super comic book universe Pounds of Power, published by the Antarctic Press. She started her career as an Associated Press photographer at 19. She co-directed the featured documentary Come What May, about her late husband, the legendary comedian Ralphie May. And she's currently doing the film City to City across America, doing it the old-fashioned. And that's not the only part of what she's actually working on right now. She has a new comedy music project coming called Happy Ending. She's writing a memoir called Coming Up for Air. And her daughter, growing up inside all of this creative energy, just published her own book of poems called To Squish a Bug. That's a lot of work coming out of one household. What I want to talk about today is the practice underneath all of it. How a working artist actually keeps the engine on, what it takes to move between documentary, comic books, comedy songs, prose, and the live performance without losing your voice in any of them. What stays the same in her when the medium changes, and what it's like watching her own daughter pick up the same instinct. This is Lahna Turner. Lahna, welcome to Beyond the Known.
thank you. Wow, that was a lot to live up to.
Talk to us about your journey, Lahna. Like, walk us back to wherever you want to start this conversation.
Oh boy. I mean, it makes it sound like I've done all of that like at once. I mean, a lot of failing, a lot of failing, I guess, gets to this point. I don't know. Where do you want to start?
Let's, I'm very curious about obviously, your relationship with Ralphie, but then how you raised your kids through it all. Like that, when I watched the documentary a little bit, that stood out to me quite a lot. Like you taking care of the kids and now your daughter like becoming an author herself. Let's start there, right? Talk to us about that.
Well, I've been a single parent most of the time that I was rearing them. I was fortunate enough at times to have like somebody come in and help for a period of time, but largely the responsibility rested on me, which actually is not unusual for a lot of women, right? I mean, and it affected my ability to work as much as I actually would have wanted to. So, it's hard. It's a challenge. And I don't think I'm alone in that challenge is I guess what I'm trying to say. Like, yeah.
Talk to us about some moments that you remember from their childhood and how you see them now growing into adults and some standout moments.
They had a very exciting childhood early on. They were born into this sort of unusual life of being somewhat nomadic because we were traveling. And in order for them to see their dad, I would bring them on the road to see him. And we were fortunate enough to be able to do that as much as I could. But at the same time, I think they lost out on a lot of things that a regular childhood would have been for them. And of course, the ultimate loss is they lost their father. And they lost him a long time before he actually died. So that sucks.
Yeah. And,
woo.
And like, I mean, there's so many households with like, addiction is a real thing. Right. When I saw the documentary, obviously you were really trying to pull him back in like somehow, right? Like, I remember there were a few moments when you had also arranged for like, let's say, a physical fitness trainer and things of that nature, like trying to somehow pull him back in, right? What's something about addiction that you have learned? And also when your kids were seeing that, do they remember some of those days, some of those times? How do they relate to it?
I've been I spent my entire marriage trying to help him not hurt himself, which is completely and totally not my responsibility and a total mistake for me to have ever stepped into that in effort. And I have my own reasons for doing that, right? For my children, they are my responsibility. And both kids are dopamine driven, as most people are. But I think families that have addiction in them, I'm still learning all this, right? But they say that there's a genetic component to it, and also I guess an experience that they had early on. So I watched the kids really closely. And one of the cool parts about doing that film, as much as it was hard to get through, is it's glaring to them what their lives were and what it could be if they make poor decisions, because we all tend to follow in the footsteps of those around us who influenced us when we were very young. It's in our subconscious. So, but I should never have tried to save somebody who did not want to be saved. It was always his responsibility to get sober. And so that's not a good idea. You should not try and help somebody who does not want to be helped. And even though he would emphatically tell me, "Oh, I want to get sober, or I want to get help for this condition," he didn't take the steps he needed to take.
So, what would those steps look like?
For him?
For somebody who's dealing with it, because I believe that, I mean, it's very interesting, because I personally, I don't think I can put myself in anybody's shoes, right? Because we don't know what's happening in their minds, right? And sometimes, I feel like people do have that intention to change, but then when action is not met with intention, then there's that gap that gets created, right, between action and intention, and that causes a lot of stress, a lot of frustration, a lot of maybe even guilt, right? So if somebody's dealing with a lot of addiction, I would love to hear your take on how it impacted you as a spouse and as a partner. And then also, what could they potentially do, to help them, to help somebody in present listening to this might be going through this?
I think the most important thing in any person's being is honesty. That's it. I think the moment you have to be honest with yourself about anything, it creates a cascade, right?
Yeah.
So the moment that, if Ralphie had said, honestly, these are the things that happened to me when I was young, and own them and realize that it's not your fault, and then try and work on that. Yeah. That's the core value of what, I think the issue, and everyone has stuff that happens to them when they're younger. And it's just that spark of honesty. And he had a hard time being truly honest. And I think that's, I also believed the stories he told me always, because I very much want to believe people. Yeah. But I didn't catch, what was the second part? You would,
what impact did it have on you as a partner as well? So somebody listening to this is dealing with a partner who might be going through a tough time, right? So how do they deal with it?
So very much a me trait. I'm codependent, which is in that film. And I'm very loyal. I'm very I grew up in a family where my parents are still together. And I didn't believe in abandoning somebody. I still don't. I don't have that in me. But I absolutely should have given myself permission, because, and so anybody out there, whenever the addict, is big and loud and rattles cages and needs help, but so does the person who's sitting in the background. And nobody would come to me and say, "Hey, what are you going to do?" What? So maybe my message to anyone who's out there is dealing with someone who is an addict, and it's so hard. And I don't know if you can ever, especially if it's your kid, or, how do you create those boundaries with that person that is this behavior is not all right, and I'm not here for it, because you kind of want to be there for them. So it's counterintuitive to everything that you as a loyal person have in your heart. Yeah. But you have to protect yourself. And I tried at times to pull myself back and protect the kids, but I would always want to go back to him because I believed he needed my help. And in the film, Dr. Drew says, you think the person needs rescuing, you think they need your help, but really they don't. They need to find their own way through that because you're not going to do it for them.
Yeah.
And that's a hard thing to come to terms with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what stops a person on finding their own way, like you think?
I don't know. Like somebody who maybe, I'm not an addiction expert. Like I'm just somebody who lived through it and now has a film about it.
Yeah.
But I mean, maybe some people say you hit bottom and that helps you get through it. I think you have to make a choice. You have to, and a choice to be honest with yourself, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, there's people probably way more qualified than me that can speak to that. But yeah, all I can say is for myself, I probably should have found a different path. But when you love somebody, it's hard to do that.
It's very hard.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, because I haven't been in a situation like that, I don't think I can even come close to understanding. And that's why we're having this conversation because, so you can express like, you did that with the documentary or you're doing that with the documentary. And how was the editing phase? Like, when you were going back through the footages, like, did you miss the times when everything was okay as you were, watching those moments? Like what was your emotional state as you were making the movie?
I was pretty angry.
Yeah.
and because he left things really messy for me and the kids. So I had a lot to deal with. And so David, the co-director, he went through all the footage and put together a timeline of a very long string out of everything. And then he and I would talk about things, and I had to remove myself as a director from any piece of content that I'm in. So he had free reign, like free to do whatever he wanted to do with the footage that involved me and my part of the story. Because how irresponsible would it be to like direct a story and be in it? So especially something so personal. So that's why there's moments where I don't look good. And I had to just be like, all right, that's just how it's going to be. But seeing the kids and seeing the stuff that they went through and the hard times that it just breaks my heart. I hate that. I hate it. Now they're much older and they understand, but it's real weird for them as well, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And one of the ways your daughter expressed that was through her book.
Yeah. Right? Oh, I should have brought a copy.
Talk to us about it though.
Oh my gosh. So it's funny. I was talking to her last night and I said to her, I was like, April, a couple of years, and I had this maybe like a year and a half, 2 years ago, I said to her, when somebody says, who is April? I'm not sure. I mean, I know April plays water polo and I know she's in school, but I don't have like these things that I'm like, this is who she is and this is her driving force. And ever since then, she just like started to find herself and blossom into this like artist and poet and just like, it's amazing. And she's going to college next year. And it's really nice to see that for her because, you just don't know with your kids. And I still don't know, like she's still literally writing her own book, but the poetry book was interesting.
Yeah.
Because she did that. She didn't even tell me about it. Like,
oh, wow.
It was actually really funny. It's kind of a dirty story, but like she wrote like 50 or 60 poems, put them in a book and self-published it on Amazon, ordered the book and gave it to me.
Oh, wow.
And it has a dedication to mom in it. And I was like, oh my gosh, I had no idea that she was doing this. And then I started reading it and there's like some punctuation, spelling errors, not a big deal. Yeah. But then there was one poem that she wrote and she drew all the pictures too. And she drew a picture of a bucket with a handle and a tear, and it looked like a little penis. And I was like, April, you drew a dick in your book. And she was like, oh my God. So like, I was like, maybe you should have edited this first. So she went back and re-edited it and put it back up again. I don't mean to be dirty on your part. No. But like, it was so funny because, she did this like phallic picture in the middle of this like deep poetry book. But she's done so much work. Like she did every other week for the last almost 4 years. She volunteers with an organization called Our House and she works with little kids, helping them with their grief. And she went through the program.
That's incredible.
It's incredible. I couldn't do that. Like she comes out of her meetings And she tells me stories that I cry, and she's there for these kids in ways that she's amazing.
Can you describe a few stories of like, you know, like what are, you know, like how does she help them? What modalities or like is it more like,
so she's a teen leader.
Okay.
So what it is they have a group of kids that have lost a parent. And if you can imagine, people lose parents in all kinds of ways through either like suicide, drug overdose, cancer.
Yeah.
I mean, these are little kids trying to figure out what happened. And like I said, she went through the same group. And so what her job is to, you know, little kids relate better to a younger adult sometimes than an older. So there's several older adults in the group, but she sits there and plays with them and talks to them and does art with them. And it's really special. And she's going to be a counselor, I think, this summer, because she's going to be one of the youngest counselors to ever work at both my kids also did this amazing camp. It's called Camp Aaron. And it's a sleepaway camp where kids can go with other kids. Because you know, when you're that young, when they were little, there was only one other kid that lost his father at their whole school. So there wasn't a whole lot that they could relate to. And this put them in an environment where they could meet other kids that were going through the same thing.
Wow.
And they take the kids, they smash plates. They teach them like all kinds of ways to deal with their sadness. It's really good. Wow. It's really sad and unfortunate, but it's a great answer to a big problem.
Yeah. How do you, I mean, I don't know why this is going into parenting a little bit more like, you know, but this question, you know, is coming to me with your experience with Ralphie and, you know, what parenting style do you adopt so that the kids retain the good sides of him and the good sides of you? And, you know, like, how do you, I would say, facilitate that, you know, in their upbringing? And is there anything specific that you did to protect, you know, them from the negative side and just focus on the positive side? Or,
I mean, not enough, probably. They were innocent bystanders to a situation that was really unfortunate. So, I tried to like figure it out and navigate it, but not well enough, to be honest. Yeah. I mean, they saw things from him and behaviors that are part of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I try to think about it in terms of like kids all around the world see all kinds of terrible things and they grow up into hopefully functional adults and maybe richer for the experience. Like we kind of hope that the hard parts make us interesting and productive humans as we get older. And I hope that they, you know, they're still developing.
Yeah. No, I mean, you mentioned that the daughter's the older one than the son. Okay. And she's just going into college.
Yeah.
University. Okay.
Yeah. So they're still getting through this and they will be for the rest of their lives. So how they navigate that, and that's for them. And for me as their parent, I mean, I did the best I could. Like my mother did the best she could with me, and I still ended up making choices that weren't probably the best, you know. So we're all the result of the information we're given, and how we choose to deal with that ultimately is going to be how we turn out, I think. As for my son, like he was a lot younger, and he's not as open, and he had a lot of anger at the loss of his dad. He didn't understand what it meant for someone to die. And when he found out, he was angry, and he did a lot of like, I need to be the man of the house when he was like 7. And so, yeah. And so he's a really good athlete, because when he gets in the pool and plays water polo, he's going to claw his way through the water and make a goal. And so, I don't know, we're still in the phase with him of who does he want to be? Yeah. Like we're where we were with him, with where we were 2 years ago with her, where it's like, well, who's he going to be? What does he want to do? And I don't know yet for him. I still don't know for her, but yeah. And hopefully he turns out to be a good man and a good husband and doesn't do those things. But I really hope that for him.
Yeah. You know, one of the moments when I was watching the documentary that absolutely broke my heart, like, you know, when some of the footages that you've included of the FaceTime calls with the kids, and I felt like to me it indicated the complexity of humanity. right?
Aww.
Like I feel being human means, all of us have like a good side and a side, which is terrible, right? Like it's incredible that how I feel like as humanity, there's wars going on outside and there's wars going on inside of our hearts, inside of our intellects and minds and all of that. And like in some of those moments, like when I would see Ralphie talking to kids and the kids' reaction, I mean, it was just like I felt like a lot of love, right, between them. But then when I saw the other side also, like, like when someone is not making the changes that need to be made to kind of live more of those moments, there's like that dichotomy, or there's that dilemma in my head or in my mind is like, why do humans do this? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, why do we do anything we do?
I don't understand. Like, there's nothing more important to me than making sure that the humans I'm responsible for are okay. So I can't relate to it at all. Like, if my children are suffering, like there's something I can do to stop that. And just actually, like most humans, like I see somebody's having a problem, I want to stop my behavior. But I mean, as Skylar said, like addicts are selfish. Like he's in a very selfish state of mind, maybe. I don't know. I think that's what you're asking though, is why would somebody...
I'm just contemplating. I don't know the answer to it.
I don't know either. I mean, the substances that he was on were really overwhelming because the person at the end who's not calling his children is so different than the person at the beginning who's saying, I can't wait to have kids.
Yeah.
And so watching that is, I mean, it's really hard to imagine what that was like. And then, of course, if he didn't have the burden of all that weight on his body, maybe he could have made it through to the other side and been there for them, because that does happen for people. Yeah. So, he just had literally so much weight on him. But no, I think that's maybe a sin to have a child needing you and not being there for them. Like that.
I don't know about
I don't know about sin. I think it is. I mean, maybe that's not the right word for it, but it's like that's wrong. Like, it's just wrong.
I get it. Yeah.
So if you're out there and you have a kid who wants you, like take some time.
I sometimes feel like so I work a lot with meditation.
Oh gosh.
And I'm a teacher with the Art of Living, and we teach we teach kids and university students how to really handle your own mind and your own emotions, but through breath work, through meditation, finding yourself, right? And one of the things that the founder of the Art of Living, he says, behind every culprit, there's a victim crying for help.
Yeah.
And as I was watching through the movie, I could find myself, I couldn't decide whether I should be upset at this person, we're not doing that, or should I be compassionate? And behind every culprit, there's a victim crying for help, right? And to me, and I feel like that's the complexity of being human, I guess, and how we weave in the good with the bad, and and how we deal with all of that. So
I totally agree. Like something had to have happened in somebody's existence to shift them to doing what they're doing. Like it's cause and effect. And that's where you get to honesty and personal accountability, responsibility, right? Like these are things that, we have to function in the world as best as you can. So I don't know. It's a tough thing, right? Yeah. It really is. Like
it is a tough thing.
It's really hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did you manage your emotions per se as you were going through all of this? Or
depends at which point in the journey.
Okay.
Yeah. Like
talk to us about the different points.
Well, I mean, there's like the beginning of the relationship where he was really like big and fun, and we had like a really good time, and it wasn't hurtful behavior because it was fun. Yeah. Because they're doing things over the top, and that's cool.
Yeah.
And then there's having children and realizing that he's not going to get better, or he's not trying to get better. And there's like a huge responsibility on me now. And that's terrifying. And then there's a heartbreak where everything kind of came apart. And then there was the journey after to try and reassemble life and keep everyone on the rails. And then there's now that I'm sitting here with you and trying to figure out like what the next steps are for the film and the projects and everything, and an honor to be here. So maybe like all of that led me to here.
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool.
That's very cool. So let's talk about the moment when you started reassembling your life to now, right? Talk to us about after his loss. You know, you'd mentioned a little bit about the kids' reaction. How did you deal with it? And then how did you put the family back together into different projects? And talk to us about that journey. Hey, a quick pause. If you're listening to this and thinking, I need more peace in my day, more clarity in my mind, then I'll really encourage you to check out The Art of Living. The Art of Living offers a technique called sky breath meditation, used by CEOs, pro athletes, and high performers around the world to recharge their energy, clear that mental fog, and reset the nervous system in minutes. They offer programs both online and in person. It is science-backed and it works. Head to artofliving.org to learn more.
Oh my God. Well, I mean, I wrote a book because I was like, there's so much that happened in all this. But when he passed away, we were not together. We hadn't talked in about a year. Verbal. We talked via messaging because I couldn't do anything else, and it was ugly. So so I like to say I became an executrix. Isn't that sexy? Like executor is like boring, but executrix that has a certain ring to it. And so I didn't know anything about how to like deal with somebody's passing. I instantly learned. I didn't even know. You get a death certificate when you die.
I did not know that. I mean, some of the family members probably. Yeah,
I never knew this. Yeah. So, when somebody passes, you have to have their birth certificate and their death certificate to do all the legal work.
Oh, really?
And I realized that those two pieces of paper are the bookends of our lives. So like, I love this thought that everything in between those two pieces of paper is this life. And what happens afterwards or before, we have no idea. But this is like one, like, hopefully beautiful piece of one's existence. Anyways, I had to learn a lot about what to do when somebody passes, and he left it a mess, like unbelievable mess. There was $17 in his bank account, and there was about $300,000 in debt and an $80,000 probate. Oh, I didn't even know what probate was. So I had to go to court and deal with the person that's in that film who filed believe he filed 3 separate lawsuits against Ralphie. So he was still trying to chase Ralphie posthumously. So I had to deal with all of that. And I did something that, I had a friend come over and sit with me. I had a couple of friends who really helped me early on. They just came and sat with me and said, you're going to be okay. And then I created what I called at the time, it was like a wall, like almost like a wall of death in my bedroom where my desk was. And I had to cover the wall. It was covered with different papers that I had to deal with, because in a pile, you can't deal with anything. It's just like, where's this paper? So I just took that blue like painter's tape, put everything up on the wall. And it took me a little more than a year. Some things lingered on even longer, but as I finished something, I could pull the paper down off the wall, put it in a file, and be done with it. And that was really helpful. When a friend of mine's husband passed away, I did this with her. And it also so anyone going through this, create a wall of death somewhere in your house, and then you can get through the papers, because there's a lot, especially with someone like Ralphie. He had a lot of things that need to be dealt with, and it was hard. And I didn't know how I was going to stay in my house. I didn't know how I was going to afford to keep. But I made myself one promise. I said out loud, because I think if you're into like all
meditation,
of the
visualization,
you have to
or things
say,
like that.
This is what I want to do, and hope and work towards that. But also just keep it's your mantra.
Yeah.
Because I want to stay in my house for at least 2 years so I can get my son through elementary school, because I don't want to displace him. I think he needs to stay stable. And then after that, I'll move to Florida, be close to my parents, and if I can do that, then I've accomplished what I need to do. And fortunately, during that time, I was able to figure out how to stay in the house. We're still there. Yeah, I was able to do a lot. There was a lot of things that I had to do that I did right, actually.
Yeah.
And I'm really proud of in hindsight to make sure. I'll share one really.
Please do.
That I'm very proud of this story because I do believe in honesty, and personal accountability.
Yeah.
And so I had a huge credit card debt when he passed away. I never had credit card debt my whole life, but because of the way that when he and I separated, I had no access to funds. Every Apple I bought for the kids, everything was on an 18% credit on my credit card. So I had a big credit card debt. And when he passed away, I had sold some of our assets. So I wasn't destitute, but I had to decide at that moment, am I going to pay off the credit card debt or negotiate it? And I decided, no, it's my debt. This is my responsibility. And I called the card and I said, hey, I'm going to pay this off. And she was like shocked. And I paid it all off in one thing. But so that at the time I was like, I must be an idiot because most people would be like, just pay the minimum or whatever and make it go away. But because I did that, my credit wasn't jacked up. And so when it came time to like refinance the house during the pandemic, I got a great interest rate. So actually in the long run, it paid off. It paid off so much more just being honest and just doing the right thing and saying, this is my responsibility. So there's just do the right thing. Yeah. And I think it speaks to your integrity, right? Like also in the sense that there's some sort of confidence that comes up when you do the right thing, then, it's evidence building in your brain that I did the right thing. If I can do this, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this, right? Like success leads to success and, or, I cannot do this and then I cannot do this. Well, and we all have those days, like those self-doubt days. And I'm just like, oh, and I had lots of those. Yeah. Actually, we were talking earlier about India and traveling. So I went to India in my 20s and I don't remember the town. I was in this one area and this is probably something you might be able to relate to. There was a woman begging who didn't have a nose. Oh, in the stories, you mean? Or no, in the streets. Okay. I don't know if you see things in India that are just like, wow. I'm never going to see. It puts things in perspective. Like, no nose. She had like, just like, and I was traveling with a boy that I was dating at the time. And it was so surreal that after we left that town, because I said, oh my God, like, look at her. She has no nose. And he'd go, no, I think she has a nose. And I was like, no, there's just two holes where her nose. And so we started this debate where we would just randomly go, she has a nose, she doesn't have a nose. And it became like this sort of fight we would have. We were joking around like, no. And because it was so surreal, like when in your life are you ever going to have the she has a nose debate, right? Yeah. So that experience though is so level setting because no matter like what I went through, like I have my nose. Yeah. Like no matter what I go through, I'm okay. Like doesn't matter. Like I got my computer stolen and my rental car last week. Somebody smashed the window, grabbed my computer bag, passports, everything were in that bag. It was in my bag. It was my like, it sucks. But I have a nose. Like it's okay. We're going to get through it. It's just a computer. Yeah. Yeah. Somebody needed it more than I do right now. It sets things in perspective. I mean, I feel like there's like a few places that everybody must visit. Like, just to see how grateful like you can be for the things that you like, or like visit a place where people may not have as many resources as we do, or visit a prison, visit a hospital where people have like some sort of issues with the mind and, some mental issues or things like that. And you would be, or like visit just any hospital where people are sick. And then I feel like when you do these things, you could start becoming more grateful and respectful towards what we have and like our own mind, our own body and, health and things that truly matter a lot. Right. So thanks for putting that into perspective. Yeah, no, it really like, I spent about 4 months between India and Nepal at that time. And yeah, I mean, I was like that really, I learned more during that time than I did my entire education. What year was this in? Like 96, 97-ish, somewhere in that. So yeah. That time definitely, now of course things have improved quite a lot and on that side of the world. But I think in the 90s, India was, like a major part of India was poor. Like a lot of Is it a lot better? No, I haven't been back since 100%. Then. I mean, I feel like the middle class has grown so much. Obviously, there's still pockets where, where abundance still needs to reach. But for the most part, I think it has, like the amount of growth. I think India is now
I might be wrong, 4th or 5th largest economy in the world.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Like, so it's come up quite a lot.
I need to go back. I want to go back.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's go. I would love to go back. I mean, I'd love to see that improvement because, I saw like a lot of, I'd love to travel too. So I've traveled a lot but that changed me. And I think it's like really powerful because people do in this country. I mean, we have it really good and people find ways to complain and it's like, nah, you got a nose. You're okay.
Yeah. You know, when I was, just a fun little story, when I was in college, I think, second year is called sophomore year here, right? So sophomore year, and I was volunteering like your daughter, and I would what I would do is we would I've been doing meditation, and so it's been my passion to kind of talk about that and tell people that, hey, there's a resource where you can learn to handle your own self, your own mind, your own emotions, because if you could feel the way, like, if you feel good inside, you do good for people outside. If you feel terrible inside, then guess what? You do terrible things to, people outside of you. And as a society, we are in this stress propagation mechanism, the kid gets into a fight at school and now they start yelling at the teacher, or the, teacher has a bad day, then they go back home and, fight with their wife or husband or whatever. And then we keep propagating this stress. So there needs to be like people in the society who are like stress stoppers. They get the stress. So I'm very passionate about it. So I was volunteering for in this small town in Himachal Pradesh. There's like a village, and what we were doing was going door to door.
Where is this, in India or
in India?
Okay,
in India, Himachal Pradesh is the name of the state. So there was a village that me and some of my friends, we were volunteering, and it was village life is very simple, and we were just teaching them, just even them, like some breathing and some meditation. It's like, okay, so. And it was night, and I think you were telling a story a little bit earlier about not being able to find a guest house. So we were actually stuck in a situation like this. We had a cab driver who was driving us around that we had booked, and it was like around 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. It was very late in the night, and every hotel or every guest house that we were trying to book a room at, we were not finding it. And those days are not like the days of smartphone where you go on Expedia and like book a hotel, or like I had to like physically go into those locations to check availability. And so the person who was driving our car, this cab driver, he was from the village, and he's like, you kids are doing such an incredible job. Why don't you come stay over at my place? Now, it was very sweet. And I was like, really? And because we had nowhere else to go, it was like really late in the night. And those towns can get a little bit like, dark, and like, you shouldn't you shouldn't be alone. So, and we were kids. So we were like, okay, yeah, we'll take you up on that offer. And we went into this, his house, and his house was literally like smaller than a small studio in LA. And it was, made with like handmade, like with bricks and stuff that he had put together, not like a very abundant lifestyle. And he had one bed, one mattress, which him and his old mom were staying there. He's like, no, you guys will sleep on the bed. We'll sleep on the floor. And then his mom made dinner for all of us. But that dinner was filled with a lot of ghee and like 5 different types of, food. I was like, what's happening? And in those moments, I could feel that even though like people were poor outside, but they were so rich in their heart. Like she gave us like her entire, like she fed us, like she probably like weeks worth of ration, like, for the 3 of us, the 3 kids. And she fed us like as if my own mom was, feeding me and taking care of me and things like that. So I think like there's a lot of love. I don't know why I told you that story about India. No, I love it. Did you ever see, I can't remember, I think it's called the Kindness Diaries, or maybe the guy went around the world and to see how people treat him. Like if he was broken down or whatever. And he said in India, he had, in the piece about that, they had a similar experience where he was taken in and treated so well. Yeah. And that's like a really I don't know why I told you that story.
Well, because if somebody were, well, maybe if they were in my car and I knew they were in trouble, but if somebody random was like, on the street suffering. I don't know that I would bring them back to my house. Like that takes a certain amount, so much kindness and bravery.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, let's circle back to your life, right? Like when you were building your life back up. What were some of the projects that you took, or what are some of the projects that you're doing right now, which people can see your expression and see all of your great work?
Well, I've always continued to do stand up. Like while this interview isn't very funny, I'm pretty funny. I write funny songs and I do a stand up, and I love making people laugh. Like that's my favorite thing to do. And so I've always kept that. I say, okay, I've kept it on like a low boil because I haven't been able to travel. I haven't been able to go on the road because I was raising kids by myself, mostly by myself. Now I have a boyfriend that helps now, and he's been in my life for quite a few years. He's amazing, but ultimately they're not his responsibility. So I've just been doing comedy in LA as much as I can, just so I don't like lose my timing and my jokes. And then rebuilding. So I had this short runway to be able to stay in LA, and I didn't own any of Ralphie's intellectual property, but I was starting to do this documentary and I needed to find his content. And he didn't own it. It was often like deals that were made. Whoever's listening that has access to your content or is going to create something to put out to the world, you need to own it because a lot of times other people will own your intellectual property, and then it goes through layers of ownership. They might go out of business and somebody else purchases it, and then that company sells it. So like the chain of title for the content that you created, you might never see it again. And so I started the process of unwinding the chain of title to figure out, okay, I need to license this piece of stand-up of Ralphie's for this documentary. Who owns it? All right. So like that was a huge project. And when I got to whoever ultimately had it, then I had a conversation of, well, you're not doing anything with this. What can I do? Can I get it back to the estate? And everyone was super kind. With, I had pretty much everyone not everyone, but most of them were very willing. And then there was one really bad person who stole the intellectual property. Yeah. The director of one of his first 1 hour special, Just Correct.
Okay.
The man lied to the Copyright Claims Board, and he got a 50% ownership of a piece of content that Ralphie worked a decade to put together. This man showed up and filmed it. Yeah. Bad dude. Bad dude. Bad you. Bad Michael. Anyways, so, but everything else I was able to bring back, and then started, this was almost, this was like 8-9 years ago. And his content started doing very well on Facebook. And so I have a business partner who posts, and we created a company together and noticed that we have a good team there, that I was able to bring in content. He was really good at posting it. So we started a company called Comedy Genius.
Nice.
And we do this for a select group of clients. And it's been how I've been able to afford to finish the film, and how I'm able to afford to do this tour right now, and how I'm here and how I was able to stay in my house. Yeah. So that was really, really fortuitous. Like I got really lucky. So built a company. Yeah.
And I was always curious, like when you were like, the moment you starting dating Ralphie to, your whole relationship, whose idea was it to document the whole thing?
Okay. So I never thought I was going to date Ralphie. Like we met, and obviously I'm not like a chubby chaser. I wasn't like, hey, fat dude, this is my kink. Like he was just so nice, and we got to know each other on the phone. And I really fell in love with his personality and how fun he was. And so, I never intended to date him, but he was so sweet and so like cuddly and safe. Yeah. Which was anything but safe as time went on. But like, I just adored him. We obviously are unusual. Like when people would see us together, I don't blame people for judging me. Like people sometimes are like, oh, gold digger or whatever. I'm like, all right, first of all, if you know the story you see in the film, we were together for like 7 years before he ever had anything. Yeah. But I understand why people do that, because sometimes I'll be, I'll do the same thing. I'll be in like a restaurant, like, look at that creeper old dude with that like young woman. Could be his daughter. Maybe it is, you know, but like, so we're all, but maybe she legitimately like loves him, you know? So I try not to judge, but we are all victims of that. So, or guilty of that, I should say. But filming us is because we were unusual. We didn't, so some of the earlier footage, like there was 2 big chunks of footage we had from when I first moved to LA and then around the time we got married, because in both ones, we were being filmed for other projects. And I was able to get that footage and use it in this film. So, yeah, the first one was for Showtime. It was a pilot that I actually got when I came to LA, where they were filming a bunch of people who were like working on Sunset, like, and I was doing a lot of stand up on the Sunset Strip. And then the second one was actually a pilot we did for VH1, a reality show, which I hated. So because I hated that experience so much of doing a reality show, that man in the film that is bad, the bad guy, he was trying to get me to do another reality show with Ralphie. Okay. There was interest in us being filmed. Yeah. Because we're unusual. Yeah. And I wanted no part of it because I didn't like the experience of doing it earlier. But I was willing, if to document Ralphie's weight loss journey. So the latter half of all that footage was the result of us hiring someone to film him on a weight loss journey. Yeah, that never happened. He wanted to get the lap band and like he couldn't qualify for lap band. So so it ended up being a different documentary. Wow. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So there's like 3 huge, and the one at the end, that was 9 months of footage that we had to pick through to get the best pieces. Yeah. Do you miss him sometimes? Like, you know, or like any of those days? I know, like, of course, towards the end, you know, got very rough and, but do you remember him sometimes or? Yeah. And how do you remember him as? So the times that I think about, I'm like, is like if the kids are doing something and I'm like, you should be here. Like August just played drums on a high school performance, like jazz. He does really into jazz drumming. Oh, wow. He should be, maybe he is there in spirit. Yeah. I don't know what the afterlife looks like, but like you should be here with him. Those are the big times I feel like it. There's been a few times when I'll leave a show and I'll feel like I can talk to him about it. Even right now with the screenings, I'd be like, you know, that went well or whatever, you know, like have like a little conversation. Yeah. Because I don't know. I do feel energy lingers. Yeah. So he's here right now. Who knows? He might be watching us. I've always felt my grandfather with me. Like always felt like he pops in and out of my life at different times. And I can't explain it. Just like a guardian angel or something. Yeah. I mean, and this could be our brains making sense of the impossible, but yeah, I don't know. I was really angry at him for a long time. And I did find my way to forgiving him for a lot of what he did. Yeah, but yeah, he was a lot of fun though. I miss that. Yeah. I miss the laughs. I miss like the comedy part of it for sure. A lot of that. But yeah, he should be here for the kids, not for me. I'd already accepted that he and I weren't going to be together before he passed away. I mean, I didn't think that was okay. Yeah. But it's not okay for kids. Yeah. Yeah. Makes sense. And talk to us. You mentioned the screenings. Talk to us. What cities are you touring next? And I have them on my phone. Yeah. Pull that up. So tonight, is this going to come out today? Well, this is well, it's going to be at least a week. I think. Okay, so you missed it in Tempe. You're in Arizona. Sorry. But let's see. We're going to be in Dallas in June, so this will be out plenty of time for June. Yeah. And that's going to be really nice because what date in June? That's on Sunday, June 14th, and then 14th. Nashville, June 18th, and that's going to be awesome too. And then Austin, June 24th. And just outside of Madison, Wisconsin, July 8th. And then after that, I don't have the dates up yet, but we're sorting out the rest of the cities. It's going to be, I'm going to try and pop into Florida. Yeah. But obviously we've got to do one in New York. I don't know. I have a list of them. Like cities you would assume. for the most part.
Yeah.
That we have in like Boston, trying to get to Boston.
Right.
Trying to get to Chicago. That one might be a little tricky because the theater there isn't being renovated, I guess. I don't know. I don't know all the details, but just you can go to comewhatmayfilm.com because the screenings are special.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I definitely, I mean, and I was sharing this with you earlier, I come from a very different background. Like, the comedy world is very foreign to me. I've enjoyed comedy obviously on TV and, or like on stages and things like that. But, growing up, I was a very studious kid. I was like a nerd who was into his books, to be honest. And for the last majority of my life, last 10, 12 years, I was an RF design engineer and I was designing chips and things like that. So and not that, like engineers don't enjoy this, but what I'm saying is like, for some reason, somehow, I've never come very close to the comedy world. And when I saw the movie, I was deeply touched, to be honest. And like I said, a part of me was like, I want to help. And then, when you watch a movie, you start, relating to that story in some sort of fashion. It's like, what can I do? Or what could I have done? Or are there people in my life who could benefit from seeing this just so that they could get help, on their own or whatever? Like, there was like a lot going on in my heart and in my mind. And so go watch the film, everybody, definitely. And it's really well made. Are you planning to ever release it on like OTT or like a streaming platform or anything like that?
No, we're trying to figure that out now. I'd love to get like a license window with one of the 7. There's like 7 big streamers.
Yeah.
But I'm also like, because I've described the distribution company, I understand that there's a whole world now where you can do everything by yourself.
Yeah.
So there's this sort of trying to figure out and navigate it, we'll see. I don't have the answer yet, but I probably will have something by like to September. I have a meeting today where we're going to talk about streaming, like doing an online version of what I'm doing when I go from town to town at the end of this, where people can log in, watch the film, and then we can have a Q&A
like
online.
On Zoom or something.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
That's something that I'm working out.
Yeah.
Because I think it's important for people to be able to experience that Q&A, because they've been really great. Like even after Los Angeles, people are like, not so, they're more about themselves in LA, I feel like. But when I'm in Houston and Las Vegas, and I'm sure tonight, people have really, really interesting thoughts. And
what's one of the most interesting questions you've been asked?
That's a good question.
After the screen, if you remember.
No, the most amazing thing that happened was at the Laemmle, the second night in Los Angeles or North Hollywood.
Yeah.
A woman stood up and she was crying, and she talked about her childhood abuse and how she has food addiction issues, and she made me start to cry because she was like, this film's going to help people. And I was like, thank you. Like that made everything just like perfect.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that less than the question, but hopefully that people find value. And if you found value.
I found value.
Yeah.
100%. I was not like, I was engaged fully, like start to the end. And it kind of also, there's a gentleman who was sitting right next to me, and I think he ran a comedy store or a club or something. And I was asking him, I was like, hey, like from your experience, like do a lot of comedians, like do they go through a lot of stuff, and how do comedians become really funny? Like have all of them gone through a lot of stuff which they don't talk about, and they use comedy as a defense mechanism, or like what is it? Like what triggers a person to become funny? I think we're all funny when we are in our natural state, when we are with our friends, or like, we can just be chilled out. But to be funny at that level, like does it, so he said that, he does comedy. He's like, I've had stuff happen to me, and I know like 90% of them, like, have gone through some stuff in their lives. And I mean, what's your take on it? Like, do you think all comedians, or like, is that a part of like, like why they end up becoming so funny? Or I don't know.
I mean, I think that's I mean, I think that comedy and tragedy, right, is kind of side by side. I think we all have like the inner child that I never, when you talked about yourself and you're being in school and being doing books or reading, and I was very nerdy in school.
Okay.
Yeah. I was very young when I got diagnosed with learning disability and attention deficit, all that type of stuff. And I was very shy, and I really just didn't want to be on stage, or I was introverted.
Yeah.
But there's like other things that happened in my life that I think are painful. And I found that getting over that and getting out in front of people was really important for me. And I love doing stand-up, and I love writing songs. I hope I'm not quite as broken as some people, but I think there's like the whole barrage of, like I don't know everybody in comedy.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of damaged people in stand-up. I mean, you hear the stories that come out of that, right? Yeah. So I don't think you have to be like the most broken person in the room to be the funniest one, but it definitely gives you a story.
Yeah.
Like if you can take your hard stuff and make it funny, that's
quite some courage.
Yeah. Like, courage. And actually the longer I've done this, the more I've been able to find like the humor I do a show in Los Angeles periodically, and it's called Comedy is Death. And the idea is for people to take their hard stuff and make it funny. And so, I think that's empowering.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, it would talk to us about the comic books too.
Okay.
Tell us, how did you come up with those, and what inspired you?
Well, Ralphie had played a superhero in a commercial.
Okay.
In fact, there's a picture of him in the front of this book. I can show you.
Yeah.
You can see it on camera.
I love him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This one.
Yeah.
So he always wanted to be a superhero, and we had a very short conversation, like easily more than 20 years ago, about what that meant. And so we came up with the idea that his name would be Superman. And I asked him one question, only one question. I said, how do you get your powers?
Yeah.
And he said, I have an accident with a microwavable burrito.
Wow.
And so you can see in the picture right here, he's holding his burrito. And I wrote this book. And then I wrote, there's this man, Andrea, who I met, and he helps people. He's an editor, and he loves comic books. He's his own comic book series called The Shepherd. If you get a chance, check it out. Yeah. It actually goes into addiction as well, and the afterworld. It's really brilliant. But I reached out to him, and I said, how do I do this? And he said, first thing you got to know, you're never going to make any money. So you do it because you love it.
Yeah.
And that was it. That was the first conversation. I said, okay. And they said, the second thing, you need 4 books. So I sat down and I wrote the other 3 books. So we have a series of 4, and the first one is out. The other 2 books are coming, or 3 books are coming each month now. And I'm super proud of it. You can get there. It is carried in certain niche comic book stores, but you can also just go on the website. This one is special edition. It's got this like foil on it. So you can only buy this one from my website, which is poundsofpower.com.
Awesome.
And it's fun. I mean, he's a fat superhero.
Yeah, I love
He's
that.
like one of the only fat superheroes that we've ever had.
I love that.
And what is fat?
We need more
fat is stored energy.
Yeah.
So if you could burn it and use it for your power. So that's what Johnny does. He burns the fat.
His energy and
Okay. And then he has to eat but he has to deal with his own eating issues, and he has to deal with addiction, and he has to deal with the demons that made him get heavy. And it's a friendship story. He has his best friends who are there for him. And my favorite book is actually book 4. So you got to get 1, 2, and 3 to get to the best one with the most action.
Yeah.
A lot of action-packed stuff that happens.
I love that. My wish is that this phase of your life inspire many, many more people. And
Thank you.
And thank you so much, Lahna, for sharing your story. Hopefully you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did.
It's like free therapy. Yeah. Now we got to go meditate. That is what we need to do.
We should do
breathe.
Definitely. I'll, how long are you here for? Like in Phoenix?
I'm leaving tomorrow. Are you doing?
Okay. Well, we do come to Los Angeles many times, and we have Art of Living runs a retreat center up in downtown LA. It's very beautiful. You must visit. It's by USC. You must go there. Like they offer meditations every week and retreats every week.
I need meditation in my life.
Yeah.
Like I've been told.
Why do you think?
Because I have a hard time chilling out. I have a hard time letting my mind, what's the ADD thing, right? But like sitting and just breathing and like what you do. I have a really hard time with that.
Meditation. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I've tried. Like if I try to close my eyes and it's like, actually I have a new, it's 8 comedy songs that I just recorded. I'll have to play one for you because it's like about not being able to relax.
Be still and relax. Okay.
Yeah.
Well then, art of living might take that away from you because who knows, right after that you might be able to sit still.
I need it.
You need it? Well,
yeah. And my boyfriend, by the way, he's been told like you should probably get into meditation because he had like a heart thing happen and they said that you can lower your blood pressure
100%
so much through just the mindset.
It's very interesting. It's because, most of us are wired to not be able to sit still in the sense like our mind, the natural state of the mind is to wander, and which is okay. And that's the difference, I think, here versus any other random meditation class, I feel is here you learn how to handle the mind and sit still through the breath, like harnessing the power of the breath. Like we have this tool to kind of help us, relax. And it's more than just deep breathing or just to, take a simple breath. It's very, I would say, involved. And who knows, next time we sit down for a conversation, you might be like, hey, Jitesh, you changed me. And now I can sit still. So
I think that would be, I want to ask you a bunch of questions now.
Well, I'll come on your podcast when you have it.
Yeah, that's awesome. No, when you come to LA, I'll come.
Okay.
And breathe.
Let's do it. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. We talked a lot, not enough breathing.
Well, we're always breathing, but we have to pay attention to it. But thank you so much, Lahna.
Thank you.
And I want to thank our sponsors. These are gifts for you, by the way, so you can take them. So this is Ghee Sutra. These are both skincare products. This is a face oil.
What? Oh
and
my
this
gosh.
is a face emulsion, like a moisturizer.
Yeah.
And so it's both are handmade and using
That's awesome.
you can hold them. It's using Ayurveda. Ayurvedic herbs, natural. It's all very natural.
Good.
It smells good. So that's made with saffron and 32 flowers, 32 herbs.
Wow.
And slow crafted over 7 days. This one made over 14 days, one bottle. And what they do is they take ghee. Do you know what ghee is?
Yeah.
So they wash the ghee in a copper vessel. They play all these mantras and chants and high vibration music. And they wash it 10,000 times. And it emulsifies into this beautiful thing.
And this is a lotion.
This is like a face moisturizer, face emulsion.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And the reason why they sponsor our podcast is because they believe in the same ethos, like be good, do good. And they donate 100% of their profits to girl child education. So I thought that you'll enjoy these gifts.
100%.
100% profits donated.
That's like unbelievable.
Yeah.
So when you buy I'm going to do a pitch because I don't know anything about the product. But when you buy this product, 100% of the profits go to help children.
Yeah, children and veterans. So girl child education is close to their heart. They donated to care for children. And then the second project is called Project Welcome Home Troops, which is also like they donate, help with trauma relief for veterans and deal with PTSD and stuff like that.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
I know somebody who I have to introduce you to now for that.
Do it. Yeah,
she works with PTSD in the military. Yeah. 100%. And has been involved. It's called Hilarious. And she runs a company and we've been working together. I've been bringing her poster to our events.
Nice.
You might have seen it on the red carpet at her poster up. Yeah. She works with a lot of military too.
Wow.
So that's like, there's all these connections.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Thank you so much for your time today. And all the best for the screening tonight.
Thank you.
And I'm sure it'll go great. And thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hey, a quick pause. I want to share a resource I've personally trusted for years. And when it comes to living well, not just in moments of meditation or reflection, but in everyday life, what we put into our bodies matters deeply. And that is why I love Shri Shri Tattva. It's a brand rooted in authentic Ayurveda, from daily wellness supplements to natural personal care, all crafted with ancient wisdom and modern purity. No shortcuts, no hypes, just products that support real well-being from the inside out. For me, it's all about alignment between what I practice and what I teach and how I live. And Shri Shri Tattva helps me bring some of that care into my daily routine. You can explore their offerings at shrishritattvausa.com. I highly recommend checking them out. The link is also in my description below. I want to share something I've been personally loving. Shankara's Ghee Sutra is one of those rare products where ancient wisdom meets modern skincare. It's crafted from ghee that's churned 10,000 times. Yes, 10,000. Blended with Ayurvedic botanicals like hibiscus, bamboo, and it penetrates deep, up to 7 layers, to nourish, hydrate, and bring your skin back to life. No harsh chemicals, no surface level fixes, just deep, authentic care from the inside out, like everything we talk about on this show. You can check it out at shankara.com, and trust me, your skin will thank you. The link is also in the description below.